I don't know about you all, but after watching the first recoupling episode, I just came away a little bit underwhelmed because it was pretty predictable. Outside of Bryce being safe, that is, because going into this episode, if you would have asked me who was going to get dumped from the island, I would have said Bryce off the top. So I would have been wrong about him being safe. And the person that got eliminated, is kind of surprising, but kind of not at the same time because once you see how the episode plays out, you pretty much understand that they were basically showing us who was going to get eliminated the entire time. There were lots of breadcrumbs laid out throughout the episode that were foreshadowing Sean's, eventual dumping from the island. Sean himself has even said that, for the last 5 or 6 days or how long they've been there, he's basically been operating like a backup quarterback on the sidelines waiting for his chance to get in. But in my opinion, when he had opportunities to try to get in the game, he never really took a chance to do it. We heard him have these casual conversations with Bryce about him, wanting to have chats with Anaya and with Trinity, but I never actually saw these conversations play out. And that actually brings me to one more thing, and it makes me really miss the whole CBS version of Love Island. I'm not sure if you guys watched it back then or not when they had live feeds. And a lot of these conversations and some of these conversations just like this with the whole Bryce saying that he wanted to, have a chat with somebody, we would actually kind of see some of this play out on the live feed. So we may have different opinions because maybe he did go have these chats and he just didn't have a connection. But the way the show is edited and, they're under time constraints for whatever reason, even though they're on the streaming app. So the episode, I think, could be as long as they probably want it to be. But they gave us an hour and 20 minutes of fluff, but they didn't really show us that Sean at least tried to go seek out these conversations, but maybe he did. They're there 24 hours a day, and it's unrealistic to think that he just walks by these people and doesn't talk to them. So I don't know. I'm an advocate for the live feeds coming back. I really wish that Peacock would bring back the live feeds. They have live shows and live everything else. Why not have live feeds for this? It would probably increase the viewership in the show. And that honestly kind of brings me to the whole Casey and Anaya of everything because, we hear her give her speech and say, how she feels about him reassuring her and all that stuff like that. But we don't always see that play out in the episodes when we see them maybe chat once per episode, then everything else is with them in groups, or Anaya giving one of the girls advice or listening to them, or keeping up with the hot gossip within the villa, or Casey just mingling with the guys or just kind of doing his own thing. So you don't really see a lot of these conversations truly play out. So when we see them edited for TV, it's just, at times they just lack context and it's hard to kind of buy into a storyline or even like people the way that they probably want us to when we don't really know these people and we don't really get to spend a lot of time. I mean, we do spend a lot of time with these people throughout the week because it comes on basically every day. But an hour a day when they're there for 24 hours a day, I think if they gave us live feeds, and that's really why I'm saying this, it would just increase the fandom. And, that's just me speaking to, I guess, the network. But as far as we know, Sean did absolutely nothing to lock himself into this episode. It was obvious to me that the way this episode was edited, that it was going to be Sean that was going to be getting dumped at the end. And, they showed us the conversation that Trinity and Bryce had. And while I really think that conversation was pretty weak sauce, but they basically came to this whole conclusion that, they like each other and they want to just, keep doing this. I really think they're just doing the whole friendship island thing and, just kind of just going with what's comfortable until something more appealing that they may like come in. So we'll see how that plays out. But that's really what that couple seems like. And that's kind of the same thing that Sean was doing with Kenzie, and maybe he should have tried to lock in that situation a little bit better. But speaking on that, that kind of takes us to how the whole recoupling happens, because maybe that is what he was planning, and maybe he thought Kenzie was going to be his safe way out of the situation. But the whole big twist that they had and that they showed us in the trailer that was going to be revealed tonight by Ariana was the fact that new guy Corbin actually got a chance to pick the person that he wants to recouple with first. So he picks before the girls. So he's going to pick any girl that he wants. And then, the girls will pick after that. And honestly, it really didn't matter who he picked. It was going to throw the math off and somebody was going to be the odd man out. And in this situation, he picked Kenzie. So that pretty much sealed the deal for Sean, because while they always do this dramatic thing and they play this thing where whoever the last person that goes up there is torn between two people, in this situation and the way the episode was edited, we saw Trinity and Bryce having a few conversations and it seemed like they were basically on the same page. And even in her words that she said, she basically told us that she was going to pick Bryce, even though she kept trying to look back and forth. And I think some of that's done for dramatic effect anyways. But ultimately Sean is gone, and it's really kind of his fault as far as the way it looks to us. And I really wish him, well on the outside world, because, his outside life is a little bit on fire right now. The mayor, and we're not going to get into his personal business because he's going to have enough people talking about him, and he's probably not going to have the easiest time transitioning back into, his regular everyday life once he gets his cell phone and see what's happening out here. Well, at least where he's from, because I don't think he's going to be very welcome, at least by the city government back in, I think, Pennsylvania. But the other couples that got recoupled are the reason I really say this episode was predictable. And usually the first recoupling is pretty predictable unless somebody does something crazy or, flames all of their friends and, make themselves very unappealing. Usually the first recoupling is pretty predictable because everybody kind of stays with that safe person. And maybe that's the reason that Trinity chose to stay with Bryce, because, this is the person I've been coupled with since day one. So I'll just go ahead and just keep doing this because we've already been doing it or whatnot. So first recoupling is usually like this, but if you saw at the end of the episode, they're bringing in 3 new people, 2 girls, 1 guy. So I think that's going to start shaking things up. And now we're going to probably start getting some more real drama. And we're already seeing how some of these people start to crack under pressure. And while some of that was resolved tonight through a nice little girl chat, and it was really nice kind of hearing some of the background about Bia and hearing about, some of the things that she's been through in life. And it does give you a different perspective on her as a person. But outside of that, the way that that whole situation got resolved as well is another reason why I would advocate for the live feeds, because things just happen too quickly. They just have one conversation and they're back at least, cordial again. And I guess that's how it should be as adults. So I guess I can't complain about that. So what did you guys think about the episode? Did it throw you into surprises? Are you shocked by any of the results? Are you looking forward to tomorrow's episode when we get 3 new bombshells? And, I think I see some people who are probably going to turn their heads with these new bombshells, because it seems like there may be somebody in there that's a little bit more the speed of Kenzie. And, maybe not, but we'll see how that really plays out, because Kenzie, doesn't seem like she has a particular flavor, to say the least. But I just think that this guy that's coming in may put a little bit of pressure on it, because it seems like she may have wanted Bryce to be that person. But like she said, the turtle tongue turned off. So she went with something different. But as far as the way this episode ended, it seems like everybody's back copacetic again, and there aren't any real beefs brewing. But I guess that's what the new bombshells are for, to, stir some things up, because everybody's all kumbaya now. But once these 3 bombshells enter the village, there are probably going to be some people who are quickly going to get in their feelings, especially if one of their people goes to pull somebody for a chat. Or usually when new bombshells come in, they get to choose who they want to pull for chats as well. So it'll be really interesting to see who gets pulled for a chat in that situation, because that's just going to stir up mess. And I'm sure we're all going to love it. But that's all I have to say about the villa tonight. Not a lot happened in my opinion. Yeah, we saw a little bit of stuff about, Corbin kissing people, and he lied about that. And, that was all sorted out. Nothing of substance really happened in my opinion. So with all that being said, you guys let me know what you think about the episode. And I will catch you all tomorrow night, if anything interesting happens. And I will see you then. And thank you for coming.